At 9:05 in the morning, my brother's car was gone from his driveway. Repossessed. And I'm the one who made it happen. The night before, his kid threw my purse into a pool at my birthday dinner and screamed, "Dad says you don't deserve nice things." His wife laughed so hard she cried. I smiled, walked out, and canceled every payment I'd been making for them. 2 years of covering their rent, their car loan, their kids' private school tuition. All of it. Gone. My name's Melanie. I'm 36, divorced, raising my daughter Sophie outside Denver. Nothing dramatic usually happens in my life. I keep my head down, work hard, pay my bills. But that night changed everything. The restaurant was nice. Not fancy, just nice. Outdoor seating, soft lighting, good food. I'd booked it a month in advance. Sophie sat next to me in her favorite dress, excited about the creme brulee she'd been talking about for days. I just wanted one peaceful evening with family. My brother Marcus showed up late. His wife Amber gave me this fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. Their son Dylan came in running and shouting about hating the place before anyone even said hello. Marcus barely mumbled a greeting, sat down, and ordered a double whiskey. Dylan climbed on chairs, stuck his fingers in the bread basket, knocked over a water glass. And the only thing his parents said to him the entire time was, "Go play." My parents stared at their drinks. My cousins made awkward small talk, eyes darting anywhere but at Dylan. Everyone acted like this was normal. Like we all just had to accept it because that's who Marcus married. Then the cake came out. Just a simple slice with a candle. I didn't even ask for it, the restaurant does that for birthdays. Everyone gave a polite clap. I smiled, trying to keep the peace. And that's when Dylan came up behind me, snatched my purse off the back of my chair, and sprinted toward the pool. He looked right at me, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. And he shouted loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, "Dad says you don't deserve nice things." Then he threw my purse into the water. Amber started laughing. Not a giggle. Not a nervous laugh. She laughed so hard she had to cover her face with her hands. Tears running down her cheeks. Marcus didn't even blink. Didn't move. Didn't tell Dylan to stop or apologize or anything. My parents went silent. Sophie looked at me, confused and scared. The rest of the table just sat there like statues. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and left. No dramatic speech. No yelling. Just walked out and took Sophie with me. I didn't pick up when they called that night. Didn't answer their messages. Let them sit in the silence they'd created. But here's what they didn't know. What I'd never told anyone. I'd been paying Marcus's rent for 2 years. $1,600 a month. Every single month. He'd lost his job and begged me to help just until he got back on his feet. I thought I was doing the right thing for his kids. I also covered his car loan. Something he swore would only be for a few months. When I got home that night, I opened my banking app and shut it all down. Canceled the rent payment. Canceled the car loan autopay. Just like that. The next morning at 9:05, Marcus called. I ignored it. Then came the text, "Where the hell is my car?" No punctuation. No hi. Nothing. I didn't reply. But I did drive past his house later that day. The driveway was empty. That was just the start. Marcus didn't stop calling. Voicemails, texts, emails. First confused, then angry, then desperate. He never once apologized. What he did say was that the towing company told him the car was repossessed at 8:45 in the morning. That his boss called wondering why he didn't show up. That he had to Uber to work. That Amber was livid. I ignored every message. Didn't even open most of them. On the third day, the tone changed. Suddenly he remembered I was his sister. He sent a photo of Dylan holding a drawing with "Sorry Aunt Mel" scribbled in blue crayon. Like that would erase what happened. Like a kid with a marker could fix years of being taken for granted. What he didn't know yet was that rent was also due that week. I got the first call from his landlord 2 days later. A polite voicemail asking if I'd accidentally canceled the usual transfer. I didn't respond. Not my responsibility anymore. Then Amber texted me, pretending nothing had happened. Just, "Hey, can you send the rent today? We're short this month." No mention of the purse. No mention of the dinner. Just fake casual like always. This time I did respond, "I won't be covering your rent anymore. Please make other arrangements." 10 minutes later, Marcus called me 6 times in a row. Then he started texting my parents, asking them what was wrong with me. My mom called and said she wasn't taking sides but hoped I'd think things through. My dad said nothing at all. By the weekend, I got another message. Less polite this time, "You know we can't afford this place without you. So you're really going to let your niece and nephew get evicted? You're that bitter?" That's when I realized they still didn't get it. I wasn't being bitter. I was done. But I wasn't finished. Because another payment was about to come due. One I knew they couldn't cover without me. Tuition for their kids' private school. Dylan and his older sister went to some fancy charter academy Amber insisted on, even when they had no money for it. I'd been covering that too. Ever since they begged me 2 years ago not to let their kids fall behind. I opened the school's online portal, deleted my billing info, and turned off all autopay settings. It felt good. Not petty. Not cruel. Just necessary. 2 days later, I walked outside with my coffee, ready to drive Sophie to school. My car was scratched. A long, deliberate line dragged from the front door to the rear bumper on the passenger side. And on the windshield, a perfect star-shaped crack right where the driver looks through. I didn't cry. I walked back inside, sat down, and called my friend Jessica. She's the one who told me what to do next. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering how it got to this point. Wondering how someone could take your generosity for years and then punish you for finally saying no. The damage wasn't random. That scratch was long and deliberate. Almost careful. The windshield crack was perfect, right in the middle of my view. I knew exactly what it was. A warning. Their idea of payback. They did it thinking I'd cave. That I'd panic and start paying again. I didn't. Jessica didn't sugarcoat anything when I called her. "You need to press charges." I hesitated. I'd never filed anything in my life. It felt serious. Permanent. And maybe that's what scared me. Because once I did that, there'd be no pretending we were still some kind of family. But then Jessica asked me something that flipped a switch. What if it had been Sophie's birthday? What if that had been her purse? Her car? I didn't have an answer because I already knew. That night, I sat down with Sophie. She'd been quiet all weekend, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to ask questions. I told her the truth, that I thought Uncle Marcus and Aunt Amber were the ones who damaged my car. She just looked at me for a second. Then she said, "You know Dylan's mom told him to do it." I froze. Apparently, while I'd stepped away to the restroom at the restaurant, Amber leaned down and whispered something to Dylan. Sophie didn't catch it all, but it was something like, "Show her she's not better than us." Sophie thought maybe it was a joke. But now she wasn't sure. That confirmed it for me. And then I remembered something else. The restaurant had security cameras. Outdoor patio, high-end place. They always do. I called the manager and asked if they kept recordings. He was polite and helpful. Within a few hours, I had the footage in my inbox. It was all there. Dylan grabbing the purse. The throw. Amber laughing so hard she nearly doubled over. Marcus not even flinching. You couldn't hear the audio clearly, but Dylan's line came through, "Dad says you don't deserve nice things." I sent it to Jessica. She didn't even reply with words. Just sent me contact info for a lawyer and told me not to wait. By the next day, the fallout had begun. Marcus and Amber were texting again, but this time it wasn't about rent. It was about school. The tuition payment had bounced. The school sent them an alert that both kids were now listed as unpaid. Their daughter's fall enrollment was put on hold. Dylan's class assignments had been pulled from the system. They tried every angle. First, fake sweet, "Hey Melanie, there's been a mix-up. Could you fix the payment really quick?" Then guilt, "You're punishing the kids. They didn't do anything." Then blame, "You're blowing all this out of proportion. You're being vindictive." I didn't respond to a single one. On Sunday morning, they came to my house. I saw them through the peephole. Marcus standing with his hands in his hoodie pockets. Amber behind him, arms crossed like she was there for moral support. I opened the door halfway. Not to talk. Just to let them say what they came to say. Marcus went first. "You could have handled this privately." Amber followed. "We've had a rough year. You've always helped before. We thought you understood." I didn't say anything. Just listened. Then Marcus said it, "You're really going to throw away family over a purse and a couple of payments?" That's when I felt it. Not rage. Not even sadness. Just done. I closed the door without a word. Locked it. Sat back down at the kitchen table with Sophie, who was quietly eating cereal like this was all completely normal. 5 minutes later, I opened my laptop, pulled up the police department's non-emergency portal, and filed the report. Destruction of property. With video evidence. The case number popped up on the screen. Just like that, it became official. Filing that report felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But it also felt like standing up for myself for the first time in years. It wasn't just about the car or the purse. It was about everything they'd taken from me while pretending they were entitled to it. I submitted the footage and the photos. Everything. I expected a long wait. Maybe a phone call next week. Instead, I got a knock at my door that evening. 2 officers. 1 male, 1 female. Calm and professional. They'd already seen the footage. What they wanted now was confirmation that I believed my brother and his wife were directly involved in the vandalism. I said yes. Then they asked something that caught me off guard. "Do you know anything about an incident involving a missing tablet?" I stared at them. What tablet? Apparently, after the dinner, Dylan had gone into the private dining area where one of the servers left their bag. And he took an iPad. Security footage showed him walking in and walking out with something under his shirt. The server didn't realize it until later that night. Filed a report with the restaurant, who checked the cameras and submitted everything to the police. The twist? Marcus came back the next morning and returned it. Said Dylan found it in the parking lot. No apology. No explanation. Just dropped it off and left. That incident had already flagged them in the system. Which meant my report, paired with that one, escalated everything. The officers thanked me and left. I closed the door, heart pounding. Not because I was scared, but because it finally felt like people were starting to see what I'd dealt with for years. The next day, the official notice came. Marcus was being investigated for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The vandalism charge was under review, pending confirmation of prints on the object used to scratch my car. They were also reviewing the tablet incident more seriously now that there was a pattern. By Wednesday, our parents found out. My mom called, voice tired, asking if I was sure I wanted to go this far. She said maybe Dylan just needed a firm hand. Maybe Marcus and Amber were just overwhelmed. I told her I didn't file a report because of Dylan. I filed it because of them. My dad tried to play neutral. Said he hoped we'd all talk it out like adults before things got worse. As if there was a conversation left to have. That night, Amber posted on Facebook. Not naming me directly, of course. But it was obvious. A dramatic post about fake family who pretend to care until they turn on you the second life gets hard. The comments filled with her friends saying things like, "You don't need that kind of negativity and your kids are lucky to have such a strong mama." I didn't respond. But someone else did. Jessica left one comment. Short and clean, I was there. You should be careful who you lie to. It was the first time I smiled all week. But the next morning, I got a text from Sophie's school. Someone had tried to call the front office pretending to be me. asking about Sophie's schedule and what time she usually gets picked up. The school didn't give them anything, but they flagged the call, said it felt suspicious. I asked them to forward the recording. When they did, I sat at the kitchen table and played it on speaker. The voice wasn't mine. It was Amber's. She didn't even bother to mask her voice that much. Just enough to make it technically deniable. But I knew her tone, her cadence. That little breathy lilt she always used when she was pretending to be polite. That was it. That was the line. I could handle being insulted. I could handle financial betrayal. I could even handle a keyed car and a cracked windshield. But trying to interfere with my daughter's school life, her safety, that changed everything. I called Jessica first. She didn't hesitate. Report it now. Not in the morning. Now. The detective handling my case picked up right away. I forwarded the voicemail and explained the context. Within an hour, I had an emergency restraining order filed. Amber was legally prohibited from contacting me, Sophie, or even coming within 200 feet of Sophie's school. Attempted impersonation. Harassment. Malicious intent involving a minor. It was serious. And it should have ended there. But of course, it didn't. Marcus showed up at my house the next day. No warning. No message. Just stood outside the door like everything was fine. He didn't bring Dylan. Didn't bring Amber. Just him. Not angry. Not desperate. Just like a man who'd lost control of his own mess and was trying to dig through the rubble for anything familiar. I opened the door enough to step outside. I didn't want him in my home. Not anymore. He looked me in the eye and said things had gotten out of hand. That their landlord had started eviction paperwork. That both kids were officially pulled from school. That Amber was not doing well. And that he just wanted things to go back to how they used to be. I told him to stop. I reminded him of how things used to be. How I paid for his rent when he couldn't. His car loan when he didn't. Tuition when he ignored deadlines. I reminded him of how his wife laughed when his son publicly humiliated me on my birthday. And how he didn't say a word. Then he said it. She just wanted you to feel what it's like when someone takes something from you. I didn't say anything for a second. I just looked at him. That's when I knew there was no saving this. No family meeting. No heart-to-heart. No apology coming. He genuinely thought they were the victims. That I had pulled support unfairly. That my boundaries were cruelty, not survival. I told him to leave and never come back. I gave him 5 seconds to walk off the porch before I called the police. He turned and left. No fight. No goodbye. That evening, I took Sophie for ice cream. I needed to breathe. Needed something normal. She was quiet at first, eating her cone slowly, glancing around the shop like her brain was somewhere else. After a few minutes, she asked softly, "Are we ever going to see them again?" I looked at her and shook my head. I didn't even need to say it. She already knew. The next morning, the detective called. They'd gotten something back from forensics. The scratches on my car had been made with a house key, the kind typically used for front doors. And the prints lifted from the area around the gas cap matched one person exactly. Amber. They were filing charges. Destruction of property. Harassment. Unlawful impersonation. A warrant was being processed. And just like that, my silence stopped being grace. It became evidence. The day the warrant went active, I got a call from my mom. She didn't ask how I was. She asked if it was true. If Amber was about to be arrested. If I had really gone that far. I told her it wasn't going far. It was going forward. She sighed. That long, disappointed kind of sigh that mothers think still has power over you when you're 36. She said she didn't want to take sides. That this whole thing had gone too far. That maybe there was a better way to settle things privately. I asked her what part of this she thought was private. The part where they used my daughter's name to fish for her school schedule? The scratched car? The purse in the pool? She didn't answer. I didn't call my dad. I knew what he'd say. That family's complicated. That forgiveness is important. That time would heal it. It was almost worse that neither of them outright took their side. This weird in-between stance. Refusing to pick but still judging me for drawing a line. They didn't realize that was its own betrayal. Jessica was the only one who stayed steady. She helped me file for long-term restraining orders. She was there when I met with the DA to go over the charges. And when the officer called to confirm that Amber had been taken in calmly, without drama, booked and released with a court date, she brought over pizza and didn't ask for details. Just sat with me and Sophie and watched a movie like normal life still existed somewhere. Marcus tried once more. One last text. Hope you're proud. You ruined our family. I didn't reply. Not out of pettiness. But because I wasn't going to defend myself to someone who had never once defended me. I blocked him. A week later, I changed my number. The hardest part came when I explained everything to Sophie in full. She'd seen most of it, but she deserved to know why we weren't going to holidays at Grandma's anymore. Why we wouldn't be seeing Dylan at birthday parties. Why things that used to be normal would stay broken. She didn't cry. But she didn't say much either. She just asked, so it's really over, isn't it? And I told her the truth. Yes, it is. I don't know what happened to Marcus and Amber after that. I heard rumors they had to move out of the apartment. The school didn't take the kids back. Amber's facing fines. Maybe more. I've stayed out of it. Blocked. Deleted. Cleared the slate. It doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like release. This year, I didn't plan a birthday dinner. Sophie and I went to the mountains for the weekend. Just the two of us. She picked the playlist. I let her have ice cream for breakfast one morning. We laughed. We were quiet. And we were free. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had something worth celebrating again. Sometimes I still catch myself remembering old holidays. The way Marcus used to make everyone laugh at Thanksgiving. How we used to sit around playing board games after dinner. Before everything twisted. Before the taking started to feel normal. I don't miss them. But I miss the version of them I thought I knew. Sophie's been different too. A little quieter. A little more careful about who she trusts. I hate that she had to see it all. But I'm proud of how she handled it. How she stood beside me even when none of it made sense. I think she understands now that protecting peace sometimes means walking away from people who live in chaos. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't cutting someone off. It's realizing they were never really holding on to you in the first place. Not because I'd won, but because I finally stopped losing. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself when family takes you for granted. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from.